ask, how do I use Google Sheets? And my answer is not as well as I could be. So here's my disclaimer and copyright notice. The information and opinions in this presentation are those of the author only and not the author's employers or affiliated organizations, including but not limited to Irvine Valley College, the South Orange County Community College District, or Cal State Fullerton. The presentation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute any legal or accounting advice whatsoever. This presentation is copyright 2008 to 2022 by Bennett Tchaikovsky. All rights are reserved. Any distribution is strictly prohibited. Okay, so here's my question. I wonder if you have a video on your YouTube channel where you teach how to move around in Google Sheets to practice accounting. You do it very well, which I don't really agree with. And I would like to know, what are the tricks that you are using in your tutorials that I can use in my own training? So for the subscriber, here you go. Now, the reason why I like to use Google Documents, Sheets, Slides, and Documents, I've also used Google, which is basically the equivalent of Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, but they don't have the same features that Microsoft does. But I like to use these, and it's mainly because as an instructor, these are very easy to share with my students. If you come over here, there's a little button where it says share. If I say share, and I don't know if you can see this on my screen right now, but I'm assuming you can, I can basically show how do I go through and share this particular document. Then what I can do is I can change this literally to anyone with a link can be a viewer. And because I have so many students using my Excel sheets or my Google Sheets to, search problems, it's by far the best way to go through and to have, giving students that accessibility. And it's a very good way if I was going through and, if Edward Snowden was digging through my stuff, which he's more than welcome to do so. But if I'm not keeping the secrets of the world on my docs. So that's something that's very important. And as long as you're kind of doing what I'm doing, like if you're using this for education, I'm sure it's fine. So there you go. Now, the challenge with Microsoft Excel and why I don't use them as much is because everybody has to be using Excel. If you're not using Excel, then it's going to be hard to kind of go through and for others to use the product, at least on a free basis. With Google, it's free. And that's one thing I really like about the Google, the way Google has it set up, is it's very open. Now, what I am going to tell you is that one of the things that I need to do as an instructor of accounting, and I'm going to have to do this soon, is you're going to want to go through and take what we call the Spreadsheet Classes. These are at IVC, Irvine Valley College, right? If you're a California resident, it's $46 a unit. If you're in the Golden Promise, it could be free. But at $46 a unit, you're not going to get a better deal. These are 1.5 unit classes taught by Carolina Kasoy, Rupa Mathur. They are great instructors. The Spreadsheets certification is sometimes taught by Professor Dixie Massaro. She's also amazing too. And this is something that I would really, really recommend to you. It's a great place to go take classes. I'm recommending them just because I've had so many students come back to me and say how wonderful the classes are and how much they learn from them. And so coming over here, so that's really, really important. And one of the things is that I'll never forget a conversation I had with a recruiter from Ernst & Young. And I was kind of baiting her because I wanted her to say, well, what's the most important accounting class for a student to take prior to starting at a Big Four firm? And I wanted her to say, oh yeah, it's Tchaikovsky's accounting class, just because I want to get my ego, get the ego going every once in a while. But of course she didn't say that. And what she actually said was very enlightening. She said that you have to have solid Excel skills heading into the workplace. And ever since I've had that conversation, I've only heard the same things over and over. If you are going to a UC where you're taking economics and the economics are very quantitative, There are some instructors that only use Excel. So it's, if you're in the education side, you know, or if you're in the business side, it's just so important for starting your career. So I'm just going to list out here a couple of the different ones that I use probably the most frequently. So if we just come to Sheets, and I'll go ahead and basically, so what are some of the common things that I'll go through and do? Well, the first one that I use is probably when I make T accounts. And so what I'll do is I'll go to borders, and I'll choose the border style, and I'm going to choose the heaviest one. Then I come over here to the top border, and then I'll go ahead and draw this down right over here. And there I go. Now I have a T account. Now, if I'm circling this, and if you're on a Mac, right, or if you're on a PC and you hit, it's the Windows copy function, or if I come over here and I highlight this, and I come over here to copy or edit, which is copy, which is the, I'm on a Mac, so it's the, you know, *C, and then I come over here and then I hit edit and then I hit paste. That's one of the functions that I do. Something else that I will also go through and do is, if I'm looking to move it, is I'll come over here to hit cut. And then I'll come over here, I'll hit edit, and then I'll hit paste. Okay. One of the other things, so that's kind of like copying and pasting. And again, there's keyboard shortcuts to make this a lot easier as you're going through and doing this. One of the other things you'll also see me use in my videos is, if I say over here, if I call this T account cash, and by the way, too, if I want to make the font bigger for someone like myself whose eyesight isn't what it used to be, I can come over here and say, oh, cash is 10,000, 1,000, 15,000, 16,000. And if I want to make these a $, I can go over here to the little $, and say format as currency. Now, if I'm trying to come over here and say, oh, I want to get rid of those zeros, I can use this little like decrease decimal spaces and put that over here. What I can also do, if I want to make my column bigger, is I can come over here and just drag it like this, and then I can get like a larger column. One of the other things you'll see me do sometimes is, if I say transaction 1, and let me make this a little bit bigger. So over here, and if you see, it's right now, it's horizontally aligned. I can change this to be centered, or I can change this to be right-sided. Okay, so let's just keep going with this, right? So if I had a credit over here in cash of, say, 7,000, and if I want to, right, come over here and say I want to, okay, now what do I want to do? Well, let's go ahead and make this entire thing 18 column. If I click on the whole columns up here, it's going to basically make this go to the 18. Now, if I'm wanting to determine the ending balance in this account, I have a few options. One is I can use equals, basically equals sum. Basically, this would be D3 through D6 or D5. Okay, now, why did I go through and put this little thing at the very front? If I didn't do that, it's actually going to go through and do the calculation for me. When I hit equal sign sum, and I come over here, this is what it's going to go ahead and add up. Over here, if I come over here to the right-hand side and I do plus 7,000, so, you know, I can either do it this way too. The other way I can also add this up is I can say, well, 1,000 plus 15 plus 6, 16 equals 32. So you can also write this as equals D3 plus D4 plus D5. Right. And so if I do this over here, and if I get rid of that side, I'm going to get the same result. So this is something over here that you can kind of look to kind of go through and kind of play with. But again, if you take an Excel class, this is something you can go through and learn. Now, the other thing I'll do too is I'll say, okay, well, if I'm subtracting one from the other, the smaller from the larger, leaving the remainder on the larger side, I can essentially just say, okay, well, D7, well, I'll just do a plus D or equals D8, so be D7 minus E7. And if I do that, it's based, I'm telling Excel to make this cell be equal to D7 minus E7. So over here, this can kind of get me down to that same kind of result. So those are definitely things I like to go through and use. Now, for example, over here, if I'm on the class list and then say I'm going to go here, do a control copy, I can come over here into this cell and just go ahead and do the classes right over here. And this will hyperlink to the sheet that I'm trying to go to, right? So those are all features that are available to me on Google Sheets. Now, if you look down over here, and we'll call this sheet 1, we can call this practice 1. And then if I want to add in another sheet, I can just basically keep on hitting the plus signs. Now, if I want to link sheets together, if I do a plus, and then I come over here to say like D8, that's going to actually pull this in. Now, again, make this over here at 25,000, right? So these are all now at basically the font size is at 18. Notice here, I also want to title my spreadsheet, call like wire basic practice 1. And as long as I don't have another sheet of the same name, it'll allow me to go through and do it. The other thing right over here is if I want to download this as an Excel file, I can absolutely do that, right? So it gives me all these different options that are down here. Okay. So copy and cut and paste, pasting within documents. So one of the things I'll oftentimes will use, and let me just pause real quick. And to do a screenshot, you just have to go through and look it up. But once I do a screenshot, if I want to copy it onto a Google Doc, I just basically highlight this over here. And again, I'm on a Mac, so it's probably going to be different. I do a control copy. And then I come back over here to sheet 2. I do a control, didn't work. Hold on, let me try it again. Hold on. Over here, when I would used to be able just to copy images into, a Google Sheet, now I have to go over here to insert image, insert an image over cells, and I go here and pick my screenshot. And then this basically comes in over here, and then I can kind of go through and manipulate it. So it's bizarre. I used to just be able to copy it through, but for some reason it wasn't allowing me to do that. So I do like to put in images. The other thing you can also do here too is that there are so many different like charts you can set up. There's a lot of terms in terms of going through and using data and sort. So some of the other ones I use a lot is if I'm freezing panes. So say if I come over here, I'll hit view, freeze up to row 9. So basically what happens is that if I'm looking at a document, I can basically leave this here and then just kind of go up and down with it. I can always go over here too and do view, freeze up to column B. And so if I'm coming down over this way, then it's basically freezing like at that particular moment. So again, the freezing functions are something, and when you see this undo and redo, that gives you the ability to go back, and if I made a mistake, I can go back and go through and take a look at it. Let's see over here. Some functions, we just went through that. Really, a lot of it's going to be practicing. One of the things that I'll do pretty constantly is that if someone said, oh, I'm needing to do, so let me just find this over here. Okay, let's see here. Sorry, Ingrid, I'm going to use an example again. So what I'll do for a student when they're going through and choosing their classes is I'll go through here and say, okay, you know, if I'm basically saying, okay, well, this is going to be general, this is going to be group C3, what I can do is if I highlight these certain functions, and we'll just call those A, B, D, and E. If I start with this particular cell and I come up over here and I do data, sort range, and if I go sort range A to B, this will basically go through and organize it in that particular order. So that's something I also do a lot of. One of the other things that I will actually also just kind of show you, let's see here. So when I used to be working as a department chair, one of the things that we're always going through and doing is trying to determine school productivity and how productive are the classes. And so one of the things over here is you can kind of see, and it's probably a little bit on the harder side to read, but when you're looking at all of these functions over here about, well, how many units is the class? What's the LHE? Or I think it's the lecture hour equivalent, the full-time equivalent faculty, the weekly student contact hours, and then productivity. Now, I know as a student, you're going, dude, like, why are you telling me this? Well, the reason why is I think it's a very good example of over here, you're going A, B, and then you're kind of showing this down. This is how you're computing the numbers. It's very important to me as an instructor is that if I'm showing you a number, I want to make sure you know how I'm calculating it. So this is A, this is B, B divided by 15 equals C. So when you look at this in terms of the summary, this summary is basically pulling it from all of these other different tabs that are over here. So, and this is something where over here, then I'm able to kind of show the user about how to go through and to do this. Now, one of the things that I'm absolutely terrible at when it comes to Excel is the presentation. I generally am just using it to do the calculations. I'm not really as concerned about the presentation because it's really serving my purpose. But if you're doing this in the corporate world, you really want to make sure that your users are going to be able to look at that information and basically say, you know, what's the importance of this? So that's just a little bit of a brief overview about how I use Google Sheets and Google Docs. And again, I'm a huge believer in them just because I think that they're absolutely amazing. It's not nearly though as robust as Excel. So make sure you take Excel classes. I'll put the link to that below, basically for IVC. But again, I thank you for joining me here today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at 1812cpa@gmail.com. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Have a great day.